In this video we're going to have a look at a filter that will actually allow us to do some lighting. Now before I actually go too far into this, I do want to explain that there is a slight issue with Adobe 2020. It appears using this filter, a lot of people have reported crashing and stuff like that. So before you do proceed into doing this, please make sure that you do save and back up your work. There is a good chance it will crash. So I will be showing you sort of one of the workarounds that has been suggested for Adobe Photoshop 2020. If that doesn't work, then you may need to find an earlier version of this. But most of what we can create here using this filter can be done using our manual lighting anyway. So this is just an add-on, but it's well worth checking out if you can get it to work. So here's my previous document, and as you can see, I've got my manual lighting in here where I've manually painted in my different effects, and literally it's creating a shape, changing the adjustment layer, soft light for example, adding a effect and a blur as required. I've also dropped in a night sky, and I've also, let's turn those off, used some adjustment layers. Don't forget your adjustment layers down here, and use things like hue and saturation, color balance, and levels. So hue and saturation to knock the saturation down, color balance to get the blue, and then levels to make it a little bit darker, and a combination of those. And these are all adjustable once again. Also note that I do have my video elements on separate layers still, so if I do need to animate those, they are separate from there. Now ordinarily what I'd do is I'd have a flattened layer. Let's turn all these off so we can just see that. A flattened layer of my image, and to do that, simply what you do is create a new layer and then Alt Control Shift and E as I've put in here, or Command Alt Shift D, and that will create, if you're on a Mac, and that will create a merged layer. Right click on that, convert to a smart object, so that when we do enter the filter mode, it will allow us to do changes after the fact. Otherwise it will be permanent because it is a filter. Now if you do run into problems, but remember, save your work first, there are some suggestions, and this is an image of those suggestions, so well worth checking that out. What you'll need to do is actually go into the Photoshop performance preferences, and you want to turn on this option that says legacy compositing. So let's make sure we've got this ticked, and I think also tick on use graphics processor. So let's jump into that right now. Let's go Photoshop preferences, performance. There it is there. So this is the actual image that I've given as well. And legacy compositing I have turned on, and use graphics processor turned on, and hit OK. Now you may need to restart Photoshop in order for that to take effect. So that might sort out the issue. If not, at some point, hopefully Adobe will come to the rescue and do an upgrade on that. But because this has crashed on me multiple times, I'm actually going to leave Adobe Photoshop 2020, and I'm going to open up the same project in Adobe Photoshop CC 2018. So fortunately for myself, I do have an older version of that for emergencies just like that, and here is exactly the same document: manual lighting, night sky, adjustment layers, and our render layers. And here is the smart object that I've created as well. So it's exactly what I had previously in there. I'm just going to shuffle that across a tick, and let's jump into the lighting option in this, and hopefully that will work out. So filter, down to render, and then across to lighting effects, and open up. This is going to open up in its own window, and there we can see we have a lighting option already. Now there are some preset custom options in here, and you've got some fun ones like 3 down, which is going to give us 3 little spotlights down, and all of these are adjustable, so you can actually start rotating these, you can scale them, and you can also move them around and change the intensity of them. So they're kind of fun like that. But also note over here on the right in the properties, we have some options like color, so you can actually pop in a color for these. You can play around with the intensity, and you can also do some other things like colorize, so you can actually use colorize to affect the background, and you can play around with the ambience of that as well. So you can do some really fun things with these and jump through and give yourself different lights as required. And you'll notice the lights are all over here in the lights panel, and you can turn those on and off as required or delete them if you do not require them. Now you're always going to require at least one light. It won't let you delete everything, otherwise it will be completely dark. But you can also create your own lights. So up here, if we hover over there, we're going to have add new spotlight. Let's do that. Again, it's quite a large image. And let's go to the next one, which is going to be add new point light. And it's going to be kind of like a little torch that we can shine into our environment and move around. So I'm actually going to delete the others so we can get a little bit more focus on that one there. There's my point light, and as you can see, I can move them around, intensity, colorize, color, all the rest of it. Really worth checking out some of the things that you can do with that. So, you know, kind of fun as well. There is also a third option here, which is a new infinite light. I'm going to pop that one in there. And let's get rid of the point light as well, so we can just focus on. Now this is actually more for 3D objects, although it will still give you some idea in a 2D space here. And we can rotate this around, and this would actually affect the lighting of a 3D object. And this is actually showing us the direction of our infinite light through there. But for most part, you know, our spotlights and our point lights are going to do a quite interesting job for our lighting. And so let's get rid of that one and pop that through. Let's drop in some spotlights, and you know, these are pretty cool for a lot of things, but I will sometimes use these, or I'll sometimes use a combination of these and manually created lights, but they will add a really nice sort of, you know, effect straight away. As far as, you know, it's going to give you a nice little dark area to start with, and you know, you could probably add some really cool stuff for that. So all of these are adjustable. Hotspot, great. Increase the hotspot length right there. Increase the width, etc., etc., and you know, just drop in a whole lot of different lights as required. And hopefully you can find something that's going to work for what you want. Once you're happy with that, you can hit OK, and that will hopefully open up and show you your variation right there. So there's my variation there. Please note this is a smart object, so it has the filter right there, so I can turn that on or off. And the other advantage of that is if I do want to do a variation of this, I can simply duplicate that, and then I can jump back into those lighting effects of the duplicate version, double click in there, and then I can click on those exact lights there and make changes to those as required. Or, you know, I can add more lights, whatever's necessary. And once you get a hang of this, it's actually really quick to throw in some really interesting lighting variations, play with the mood, play with the atmosphere of your project. And don't forget, if you do need to add in additional effects, you can still play around with adding manual lighting in over the top and all the rest of it. Alright, enjoy.